So, what if I told you that the key to any startup success might lie in something as simple yet profound as sustainability? Today, we're digging into a seismic shift in the business world. Yes, that's right. Sustainability isn't just a buzzword or nice to have, it's really become a non negotiable for modern enterprises. But here's the real question: is going green just good PR, or is it transforming the marketplace? And why are so many consumers walking away from trusted, established brands to put their money behind eco friendly companies instead? I don't think it's just a trend, it's a movement. And today, we'll uncover why sustainability is now really that strategic powerhouse for all startups alike and probably existing businesses, and how it's reshaping industries and surprising ways it could drive both impact and profit for businesses. So, what's up, everyone? I am Jarod Lehn, and this is Fit for Business, episode 73. So, let's talk about sustainability. Not just a buzzword, it's been around for a greater period of a decade. I myself, years ago, worked for multiple companies that were sustainability, environmentally friendly. Heck, one of those companies was a company called V-Ride, which was later acquired by a large entity, as we know, Enterprise Rent-A-Car. V-Ride was a company that was a commuter van pool program. So essentially, anybody that commutes to work, whether they are a federal, state employee, or running with a Fortune 500, Fortune 1000 company, you, as an employee, have stipends, right, where you get reimbursed to and commute and from to and work, right? So people get that reimbursal, whether it's for going to work via train, via bus, reimbursement for tolls. Well, carpooling, van pooling, identically the same, right? You drive with more than one person. So the whole concept behind a van pool is like, hey, if you have 5 to 7 plus people that are commuting from one destination, one area, let's call it a park and ride, right? Where people go to get on a bus or just carpool, you can van pool. And that was the whole concept, right? Where they were leasing like Chevy Traverses or larger, express vans all throughout the greater 50 states. It was actually like a pretty cool program. And it was cool to be, around that time frame, earlier on in like the 2010s ish era, working with large entities to try to set up those programs. It was pretty cool. They were more or less helping to reduce carbon emissions, carbon footprints, right? So, without further ado, that's a little backstory about when I was really introduced to the whole sustainability push, right? Let's learn about why being environmentally responsible, it's not just good for the planet, which it is 1,000%, right? Hello, wake up call. Being environmentally subconscious is good for the environment, right? But in business, I think it could just be a secret weapon to winning over customers, right? So let's talk about it. The movement. So I really want to start with what we're calling the eco startup movement. Kind of just keeping my ear to the ground, seeing what businesses are up to, right? I think we're witnessing really an undeniable surge in these eco driven startups. And they are radically reshaping industries really right before our very eyes, right? From the fast paced world of fashion to how we produce and consume food, and even the cutting edge of tech. It's really, truly transformative. And what's fascinating about many of these young companies is that they just don't add sustainability as an afterthought or a marketing tactic. No, they really embed it right into their DNA, their very mission from day one. Sustainability isn't a bolt on feature, it's a fundamental to who they are. This means rethinking every step of their process, the business process, right? Think about it. Think about this, right? If they're scrutinizing their product development, asking, can this be made with less impact, right? They're really revolutionizing their sourcing, right? Like, where do we get our raw materials from? And ethically and renewable is it? And are they innovating fiercely in their packaging, moving away from single-use plastics to truly compostable or reusable solutions, And not just so, we're seeing incredible real-world examples emerging every day. Consider brands that are mastering the art of using upcycled materials, right? Taking waste products, physical products, and transforming them into valuable new consumer product, new goods, right? We're seeing these companies commit to genuinely carbon neutral shipping, right? Offsetting or completely eliminating their transportation emissions, right? Heck, look at Amazon. Primarily, Amazon made a promise, a mission, a commitment to eliminate gas powered vehicle and transfer that into battery operated vehicles. And of course, the explosion, right, of plant based ingredients across various sectors. However, you look at plant based ingredients, good, bad, or indifferent, reducing the environmental footprint associated with traditional animal agriculture, right? This movement isn't just about like a few niche players, it's becoming a significant force really in the global economy, not just here in the US, but globally, right? So, what does this mean for businesses itself as a landscape, right? Well, for one thing, I was speaking with a good friend of mine who had mentioned this to me, oddly enough, who's in this arena with something I got going on. He's like, hey, you should look into doing A, B, and C. And at the time, it struck with me and I didn't think about it. But the more and more I thought about it, he was spot on with what he said, right? Well, embracing sustainable practices isn't just about being good a citizen, right? It's really fundamentally about rethinking how a business operates from the ground up, right? It forces innovation. When you commit to reducing waste, for instance, you're not just being eco-friendly. Now you're finding new efficiencies, cutting costs, and uncovering untapped value really in once was considered trash, right? And this commitment to sustainability isn't just going unnoticed, especially in the investment in the community, right? We're seeing a growing trend where eco startups are increasingly attracting forward thinking investors, right? These investors recognize that sustainability isn't just a trend, it's a way for future proof companies, portfolios, right? Companies built on sustainable principles, right? They're more often resilient to regulatory challenges, more attractive to new generation of talent, and less vulnerable to supply chain distributions linked into environmental issues, right? They see long-term play, long-term growth, right? Potential and reduced risk. Building credibility, is also a huge part of this eco-conscious startup environment, right? Where they're leveraging sustainability certificates, rigorous third-party verifications, really, and committing to these transparent reports. They're reporting, right? They're showing this data. They're showing where you can, the supply chain, their carbon footprint, their reductions and metrics, right? They have all these reports that they have to submit quarterly and annually. It's not just marketing. It's really about authentic validation. And it builds immense trust with both investors and the consumer or customer. We're seeing incredible success stories really emerge from the movement. Startups that have taken bold steps, dramatically reducing their operational waste or pioneering new methods to lower emissions across their entire value chain. Some are evenly creating entirely new business models based on the principles of circular economy, right? Where products are really designed to be reused, repaired, recycled at the end of their life, minimizing the need for raw materials, which are new, right? Because there's not an overabundance of these raw materials, as we know. And they're not just isolated cases. They're becoming compelling blueprints for how businesses can not even do good, but being great. So this perhaps is like probably the most compelling or interesting part of sustainability, the story, right? The undeniable impact on consumer behavior and the loyalty, right? We've talked about, the internal shifts, the businesses, but what about the people who actually buy the products and the services, right? Numerous surveys and market research are really studies, consistently showing a powerful trend. And those trends are increasing numbers of consumers who are actively seeking out eco-friendly products, right? They're not just passively considering them, they're prioritizing them, right? More than that, they place a significant premium on companies that clearly align with their personal values. This isn't just a product's function, it's about purpose. We see real world examples playing out every single day. Think about the brand that went completely plastic free in its packaging, right? You often find its customers becoming fervent advocates, sharing their experience online, not just because the product is good, but because the brand aligns with their desire to reduce plastic waste. Or consider a local business that switched to 100% renewable energy. Customers aren't just returning for the service, they're actively referring friends saying, hey, you have to check out this place. They're truly committed to sustainability, right? These efforts lead to higher retention, increased referrals, and genuinely passionate brand advocacy. So the role of transparency here it's not undeniable. It can't be overstated, right? Consumers, as we know, via the internet are so much more savvier than they were a decade ago, 2 decades ago, right? They want to know the whole story, everything. They're looking for clear, consistent communication, everything from detailed supply chain tracking, so they know where their ingredients and components come from, right? To third-party certifications we mentioned earlier, where they can look this up. When brands openly share their sustainability journey, right, including both challenges, successes, it builds an incredible level of trust, right? Ultimately, consumers want to feel like their purchases made a difference, right? I believe it. They want their hard earned money to support a better world, right? When a brand genuinely commits to sustainability, it empowers us as a consumer to feel like, hey, I'm now contributing to a positive change with every fucking purchase, right? That feeling, sharing a purpose, is a powerful, powerful fuel for long-term loyalty, right? That goes far beyond, right, just price or features. While the path to becoming sustainable, startup is incredibly rewarding, it's not without challenges. That's for sure. These pioneers often, face significant hurdles, right? One of the most immediate concerns could be higher production costs, right? Sourcing sustainable materials, implementing ethical labor practices, or really adopting cleaner manufacturing processes, right? These could be initially more expensive than our traditional methods as we once knew, right? This can impact profit margins, right? Or require higher pricing for us, the consumers, right? Which needs careful management and communication, right? Then there's the ever present risk of greenwashing accusations, meaning, right, in a world of increasingly aware environmental issues, as we know, consumers are also highly attentive to brands making claims, right? I'm doing A, but they're actually doing G, right? So by genuine action. Startups really meticulously need to be honest and transparent at the end of the day, avoiding superficial marketing, right? That could be perceived as not real, to be layman terms, right? Authenticity is the paramount, hands down. That's what it comes down to. And of course, right, there's the ongoing task of educating all the consumers, right? Not everyone understands the complexities of what sustainability is or why particularly eco-friendly choice might be, I don't know, beneficial. The companies often have to invest time, resources in explaining this mission. What's the reason behind it, the purpose, their processes, and the long-term benefit of those products, right? So, even though within these challenges lie immense opportunities, that's what we're saying here. The need to overcome these hurdles drives incredible innovation. Sustainable startups, right, are forced to rethink everything, leading to groundbreaking solutions in materials, science, logistics, and product design. This innovation is not just good for the planet, it creates new intellectual property and market advantages, right? Authentic storytelling becomes a powerful, huge tool. When a brand sustainability commitment is genuine, it creates a compelling narrative that deeply resonates with consumer, right? It's not just about a product, it's about a shared journey towards a better future, right? And this shared purpose naturally leads to forming communities around shared values, right? Customers become advocates, brand ambassadors, and even collaborators in the mission, right? We're seeing exciting collaborations, 1,000%. These companies, startups are partnering with like NGOs, with research institutions, and even with larger established corporations. Those partnerships can amplify environmental impact, bring new resources to the table, and even open up entirely new markets that wouldn't be accessible alone. It's really a testament to the power of collective actions for the greater good. So, what are these takeaways? What are the big takeaways from this podcast, from this episode, right? So first, eco startups are not merely reducing their environmental impact. They're not. They are fundamentally redesigning, reimagining business models for the better, right? They're proving that profitability and planetary health are not mutually exclusive, but they can be. In fact, they're deeply intertwined. Second, it's clear that sustainability has moved beyond just being a nice to have. It's now the powerful driver of both business success and truly deep, enduring consumer loyalty, right? So, brands that embed environmental responsibility into their core are building more resilient, purpose driven enterprises, right? And those brands, right, that are truly poised for long term growth and that landscape, these brands are going to be authentic, transparent, really, and relentlessly innovative in their eco commitments. They're not just jumping on the bandwagon, they're really paving the way for a greener, more conscious economy. So, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Explore these eco-conscious startups, businesses, and how they're really shaping a greener future, no pun intended, and building meaningful, lasting relationships with our customers, right? I enjoyed this conversation. I hope you guys did too. Found some valuable insights, inspiration, maybe for your own business venture. Remember, if you're not already, subscribe to the Fit for Business podcast with me, Jarod Lehn, where we discuss more innovation, entrepreneurship. Share your thoughts in today's episode in the comments, and keep an eye out for our next episode following episode 74. So again, I'm your host, Jarod Lehn, and this has been Fit for Business, episode 73.